Okay, so in this video we're going to wrap up editing and then also talk a little bit about your homework and the final project. So in order to really address editing in the 21st century, we need to talk about elliptical editing and jump and cheat cuts. Now, jump cuts are one of the most frequently used types of editing in the 21st century, especially on the internet. It's also one of the most frequently misused terms by my students. So I really want you to pay attention here and get the jump cut explanation clear, because otherwise you're going to get some angry comments from me on your homework. So I'm going to show you a clip from The Royal Tenenbaums, and that's a Wes Anderson film. It's a fantastic film. It's one of my favorites. And if you haven't seen The Royal Tenenbaums or any of Wes Anderson's work, you really should, because he's one of the most important auteurs of the 21st century. So a jump cut is a kind of elliptical editing. And elliptical editing, what it does is it deletes time from a scene. And so it works just like an ellipses does in your writing, because you use an ellipses to show where you have cut words from a sentence, especially from a quoted sentence. And so elliptical editing does that same thing. Normally what you're trying to achieve in editing is to create the illusion that there's continuous time and space, that everything is happening and that no time has been cut out, or to feel like no time is cut out. Jump cuts actually draw attention to the fact that time has been deleted in a scene. So I'm going to show you this example here. Okay, I'm going to turn down the volume. But in the scene, you'll see deep space, where we have Bill Murray in the foreground, this character in the midground, and Luke Wilson in the background. He just closed the door and gone into this bathroom. So we have a cut in. We know they've gone into this space. And here in this scene, he's going to be preparing to commit suicide. And attempt to commit suicide. I'll turn up the music a little bit because the music's awesome. And you can see here jump cuts. I'm going to start mentioning them every time there's a jump cut. Jump. 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 And I'm going to pause here for a second just to give you a little explanation. You can tell it's a jump cut because the background stays exactly the same, but the character moves around at each cut. And that shows that time has been erased. It's really drawing attention to the fact that he's cutting his hair and his beard, and then he's going to start shaving here in a minute. And so you can tell that time has been erased because suddenly his hair is much, much shorter, and suddenly his beard is much, much shorter or shaved. And so you can tell that there's been time actually dropped on the cutting room floor. Okay, I'm going to start again. Jump. 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 Now right there we saw our first kind of classic cinema editing where we have an eyeline match, where we have the close-up of Luke Wilson's eyes and then the shot back at what he's actually looking at, which he's standing in front of a mirror shaving. So this actually is also an example of what's known as a cheat cut, because in the previous shot, in order to have filmed it, the camera would have to have been right here in this space between Luke Wilson and the mirror. Obviously, the camera could not have fit in there. It would have been horrifying. So they filmed him. They probably actually moved this wall out of the way and filmed him shaving with the wall that's allegedly behind him in focus, and then put it back in place so that they could film his eyeline match to show him looking in the mirror as he shaves. Okay, I'll start this again. Now we're going to have a series of flashbacks here in a minute, and those also are not jump cuts. So we had continuity editing to go back, shot reverse shot, to Owen Wilson. He says, I'm going to kill myself tomorrow. Jump cut, flashback. That was not a jump cut. That's continuity editing. Continuity editing, flashback, flashback. These are all flashbacks here. These are not jump cuts. You can tell because it doesn't show him against the background moving around. And now we go to continuity editing. We have a tilt. This is cinematography. Tilt down, so we keep reframes to keep Owen Wilson into the scene. And then continuity editing cut. And a tilt pan, eyeline match for Dudley, and then a new scene. So that's my best example of the difference between jump cuts and flashbacks and other kinds of continuity editing cuts that you're going to see a lot. Jump cuts are really popular in the 21st century due to the prevalence of people who are videotaping themselves in order to post videotapes of themselves on the internet. It's an easy editing technique in order to cut down time and to cut out, sort of the ums and the ahs and the parts or bits of whatever you're saying that you realize post-recording that are really super boring. So you can just snip out those little bits in the middle, but not have to do a lot of cinematography, not have to do a lot of repositioning of your camera that is normally quite necessary in order to pull off the proper cinematography tricks in order to make the editing successful. Okay, now I'm going to show you a couple more things here. Just a second. So these are the last three examples on editing that I'm going to show you, and they're transitions. We tend to not have really transitions between cuts or in scenes in movies in the 21st century, but they used to be wildly popular, and they're still talked about today, so I wanted to give you some examples of wipes, irises, and graphic match. Now, for Star Wars fans out there, you probably have seen a lot of wipes in your day because Spielberg and Lucas drew on the work of Kurosawa's film creations and incorporated a lot of wipes in Star Wars. So here I'm going to be showing this. Basically what a wipe is when one image, there's a hard line that pushes it off the screen in one direction or another. And that's the interesting thing about wipes is that they can really go in any direction. So here we're going to see like a clock. Yeah, a clock kind of wipe. That's an iris. There we're pushing in from both sides. Another clock backs way from left to right, diagonally up, diagonal again, diagonal the other direction, and down. All wipes, okay? Now an iris, we saw an example of it in the Star Wars montage. Here's another example. There's an iris out, is when there's a black screen where the color starts from the center in a circular shape and then radiates out. Also, you can have an iris in, which goes the exact opposite direction. But I'm not going to show you that here again. Iris out. Okay? And finally, a graphic match. This is another term that tends to really trip students up. So I want you to pay attention to it. A graphic match is a transition from one scene to another where the shape of an object, in this case a circle, is going to match the shape of another object, which is going to transition from scene to scene graphically. Okay? So here we go. Here we have the stoplight, and it becomes the sun. So that's what a graphic match is. It can be any object, it can be any shape, it could be a square, it could be a rectangle, it could be a triangle. In this particular example, it happens to be a circle. Okay? Now, so to show how editing works in the Guild, I wanted to show you a couple of examples. And another reason, or just to draw your attention to one more time, one of the reasons why I really like to teach the Guild, besides the fact that it's so wildly popular and was so groundbreaking as a transmedia narrative, is that these annotations really are helpful to students who are trying to learn not only how mise-en-scène is thoughtfully incorporated by the production crew into a series, and how the cinematography is thoughtfully considered and takes up a lot of time in a web series, but also editing. So here we have the annotation says the split screen was added to clarify to the audience that the girls were separated from the guys. So the editing can actually work or operate in such a way in order to help emphasize certain points within the narrative. Here, that is boys against girls. And that's important for us to consider. And if we don't think of it on our own, the annotations help to point it out to us. All right, so again, like here, these annotations emphasize the coordination that needs to occur between cinematography, acting, the mise-en-scène, and editing. So here it says, it took at least 16 takes to get the camera move and dialogue coordinated on that shot. We won't bore you with the outtake, but it happened. So you can see how the dialogue of the actors, so the acting, part of the mise-en-scène, the work of the cinematographer that has to sit there and patiently set up the camera in the right angle and go back to take 16 takes, even professionals, that then will get edited out and selected by the editor, integrated into the whole. This is a coordinated effort between multiple people working on these productions. Here's another example. This is from season 2, where it's highlighted that the pace of the Guild is faster than 1 page of script per 1 minute of screen time, like normal TV movies. Quicker cutting and pacing serves the internet attention spans better. So again, we have to think about how editing is genre specific and also driven by audience's needs. And when we're watching things on the internet, we tend to be multitasking and distracted. And so they address that situation by more cuts, more editing, more dialogue faster in order to keep our attention. Now, we haven't talked about sound yet, but this is also, again, a screenshot from season 2 where they point out to us the scene was originally cut to a temp music track. Ian replaced the score by matching the beats and the tone while making the new score completely his own. So again, the actors and the cinematographers and the editors also have to work with the non-diegetic soundtrack production crew. So everybody is working together in order to create a quality product where the different parts of video are all working together simultaneously, and that makes video production so very interesting. Now, in order to tie this all together, we're going to be thinking about, as we move towards the end of the semester, and starting with that, really emphasizing it with today's homework assignment for this week, on how this kind of the editing, the cinematography, the mise-en-scène goes into the thought process of the people who are creating narratives. And so you're going to be asked to do some, I don't know exactly role playing, but imagination, and to start creating some dialogue in a couple very specific scenarios that are explained on the assignment for this week. There will also be a quiz, so do make sure you check back in for that as well. Okay? Good luck.